Okay, after
Okay.
the gas station, I I got the car. I bought a car. Then I was still out of school. I would come over work in the gas station, and then it took me a year to get my license. One other license. I needed two. I got one. And then when I got the one license, a friend of mine who was going to trade school with me at the same time, he told me Cal Eastern Airways is hiring over at the Oakland airport. I said, okay. So I kept going back and forth, and no one would hire me. I remember one time the gal there at personnel, she says, I see you coming over here all the time. She says, do you know anything about sheet metal? You know, I said, no, not much. And she says, why don't you go see Homer Ludwig? Okay, he was the foreman in the sheet metal shop. So I went over there and saw him, showed him my application. He looked at me. He said, oh, you're 19 years old, you're gonna get drafted. He put a big 1A with a red pencil on my application. I took 91 on me. One of the foremen on Graveyard, he says, I see you have one of your license. I said, do you know anything about working in airplanes? I said, I know a little bit, but not about the DC-4s that we're doing there. And he said, well, being you have one of your license. He says, do you have any tools? I said, no, but I can go buy some. I got money to go buy tools. He said, okay, go buy your tools and come in on Graveyard tomorrow night. I said, okay. He says, the pay was $1.95 an hour, and for working Graveyard, it was 5 cents more, so it was $2, and I had one license or another. So I started out at $2.05.
Oh, wow.
So
In Oakland there at the
Oakland Airport.
right.
at the
And
Oakland Airport.
and you worked for what was the company called?
Cal Eastern Airways.
Cal East, and you worked on repairing.
Okay, we used to do, they had DC-4s, and they would do checks on them, work on the engines, work sheet metal, whatever needed to be done.
Okay.
Start-
Wow. And you were 19 when you got that job?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then from there, I started at midnight, get off at 8, go all the way up to Laney Trade School up there in 45th and Broadway, Oakland Tech, and and go to school, and then get out, drive home. And then it was funny, because I was 19, but being I hadn't been in the service, I had to take gym. So it was myself and another friend of mine, we go right there to Oakland Tech High School, and we would take gym. And then,
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So you still lived at home at that time.
yeah, I'm still living at home.
Okay. And then so what happened after you finished school?
Okay, after I finished school, I finished school in March of 1957. So then I went in the Army, and in June of '57. In June the 17th of 1957, I went in the Army, and I processed over Oak Street in Oakland. I remember that much. And then they sent me over from there to Fort Ord, California for a week to process. Then they put us on a train, and they sent us up to Fort Lewis, Washington on a train. I took basic training in Fort Lewis, Washington, and when I got out, I was off for 2 weeks. Then I had to report to Fort Eustis, Fort Eustis, Virginia, which at the time was the transportation center for the Army. So I was there for 6 weeks, and they didn't know what they were going to do with me, because I had the schooling already, so they didn't send me to school. So then I got in good with one of the soldiers there. Him and I became good friends. And every morning we had to fall out at 8 o'clock for Reveille, or take roll call and all that. Then after that, him and I would get in a truck, and it would take us 4 hours. And we would go to all the mess halls in the base delivering bread. After we got through that, we used to stay away from the company area, so we go up to the library and stuff, you know. And then after 6 weeks there, they sent me to Fort Riley, Kansas. Put me in a train, sent me to Fort Riley, Kansas. And I was there for 20 months in Fort Riley, Kansas. And then in June 16th of 1959, that's when I got discharged.
Were you drafted?
Yes, I was in the process of getting drafted already. But being I went to school, I went over and saw an Army recruiter. I said, I want to go in the Army. He says, well, you're going to end up in the infantry unless you sign up for 3 years. I said, no, I know you have programs for 2 years, and I went to 2 years. I argued back for, okay. So I got in for 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what it is, if you get drafted, in front of your serial number is US, and then your serial number. Well, being I volunteered, it was FR, Federal Reserves, okay? So I went in, and when I got to Fort Riley, Kansas, I go over and go see the first sergeant, I give him my paperwork, and first thing that came out of his mouth was another one of these six-month wonders. What it was, because the draft was getting really heavy on these guys. A lot of guys were going into the guards, and they were only going for 6 months, and then the rest of the time they were spending in the guards.
That's
because
right.
in those days, it was 6 years you had to put. 2 years of active duty, 4 years reserves. Or else, if you went in the guards, you had to do
The
a total
National
of
Guard.
6. National Guard, you had to do a total of 6 years. Well, when I got there to Fort Riley, he said, oh, another one of these 6-day ones. I said, no, Sarge, I'm in for 2 years. Not with this serial number. I said, I don't care. I'm in for 2. You're going to see me here for two years. Okay, so I stayed there for 2 years. And it was, well, prior to that, going in the service, the first time I ever got introduced to segregation. Because I was on TWA from San Francisco to Washington, D.C. When I got off the airplane, went into the terminal, black and white. You know, even the restaurant. Because when we went to high school, and also grammar school, went to high school, there was black families there. There was no segregation. You know, we were all the same. But when I got over there, I said, oh, man, you know, it was different.
Right,
You know,
right.
so that's the first time I got introduced.
Wow, that's
to
interesting.
You know?
So, let's go back to Niles then. So when you got out of the service, you went back home.
Yeah, I went back home, you know, and I was working over at the airport, you know, and then in 1960 I got married, and then.
Did you live in Niles?
Yeah, I lived in Niles. We had bought a house there in Niles, sold that one there, then bought a house over in the Glenmore Gardens over here in Centerville. Yeah, bought a house there, and we were married for 25 years first time. You know. Got divorced. Had a boy and a girl. My son John, he's going to be 55, and my daughter is 50. And then I got 2 great-grandsons.
Oh,
Correct.
great-grandsons. So
Yeah.
your children have had children who have had children.
Yeah, my son had a boy and a girl from his first marriage, and then his son had let's see, yeah, his son was my grandson. Then he got married, and he had 2 more, so I'm a great-grandpa now.
Wow, congratulations.
Yeah.
So your children, do they still live in the Fremont area?
My daughter lives over there in New York with her mother, and my son lives over in Brentwood. You know,
Okay.
he works for United too.
So let's go back. We're focusing a little bit on Niles. Where do you remember else? Your family was poor at the very
Yeah,
beginning.
we were all poor, man.
Everybody was.
Yeah.
Until after the war, I guess. And so, any other memories of growing up? And so, did you go to did you go? Were there any other activities that you did, or it was pretty much working?
I was pretty much working. Well, like I said, my father was real strict. I tried to join the Cub Scouts. He wouldn't let me join the Cub Scouts. So that was out of the question, you know. So I couldn't go down to Niles Creek to learn how to swim. That was out, you know. So the only thing, it was probably about a block from the section house where we used to go out and play baseball and football up and there. Then on the weekends, no, I was still going to school, high school, I think, or something. We used to go down to Niles Grammar School, you know, and we would play two sides, play football, played with the Rebel family, and also to the Grimmers. Okay, there was two twin brothers. One's is a judge now. You know, they were a lot younger than me.
Oh, a lot younger
Yeah,
than
they,
you.
they were, I think, in my, probably about 10 years younger, but good athletes, man. The two little guys, twins, man, they were good athletes.
So you would play with them?
Yeah, them, and we sided with the Rebellos and a couple other kids that lived there in the area. You know, we go over there and meet, and we two sides play football and stuff. And then also, too, there in the barrio, we used to choose sides too. Well, the Mexican kids, we used to go over there to Pineda Field, and we would play football and baseball. We didn't have any courts to play. We could go up to the Niles Grammar School, but we weren't much into basketball. It was either football or baseball. You know?
So were there a lot of kids in the barrio?
Oh yeah, there was quite a few.
Like how many families lived there? About 20, 30?
I would say maybe 20, maybe, or maybe more. I don't know. Yeah.
So you were also very religious, or your mother was, or did you go to the school?
Well, we were
church?
We were raised Catholics. Okay, we're Catholics. So I was baptized over here in Mission San Jose at the mission.
Okay, you became an altar boy?
Yeah, I became an altar boy at the old church in Niles, and I must have been an altar boy until I got to high school. In my senior year in high school, so the uniform was too small for me, so I was into that, you know.
Oh, so you were an altar boy all the way through
Yeah.
school,
I was
practically.
old enough, probably about 8 or 9 years old, I became an altar boy, you know. Growing up in Niles there was the Shuckle Cannery there in Niles, and there was the Booth Cannery over in Centerville, all right? When the trucks would come down through Niles Canyon and stop there at the Four Corners, and they would go over to that hot dog, you mentioned it.
Big Daddy's?
Big Daddy's. Yeah, we'd go there to Big Daddy's, go get something to eat. We little kids, not kids, hell, we was probably about 12 years old or something. We have our bags and we go, they were over there getting their food. We get up there and fill up the bags with peaches.
Peaches, oh, right.
Oh, and then also too, we had goats. So every morning before I went to school, I had to get the goats, bring them out and tie them up, you know, with a long rope or chain, whatever, for pasture so they could eat. And then at night, I would have to put them back in the pen, you know, and then I had to milk the goat too, you know, for goat. Oh, and it was funny because we didn't like goat milk, you know. But the only way we would drink it is my mom would make me Mexican chocolate with it, you know, and that's how.
Oh, that was good.
Yeah, that was good, you know. But that's the only way we would drink the goat's milk. The first time I ever left California was in 1957 when I went in the Army, you know, for 2 years when I went to Fort Lewis, Washington, and back to Virginia and then Kansas, you know. But, you know, growing up, I think, well, the way I think right now is the reason we have all the problems here in this country is because there is no discipline. One thing, by going into service, I learned discipline. I got to see quite a few areas. I got to meet a lot of people from different parts of the United States. You know, I remember I was there in Kansas, this kid from Pennsylvania, he says, you ever been to that famous park? I said, what park are you talking about? Yosemite. What? Yosemite. You ever been to that park? I said, you mean Yosemite?
You still stay in contact with people that you grew up with then, obviously.
Oh, yeah,
Thelma.
Jesse Martinez, you know, him and I are good friends. We grew up together, you know, and he's the one that, he drew that picture and
Right.
it hangs over
At the
in Niles.
in Niles, yeah.
At the
Right.
railroad, not station, what you?
No, you were saying it was in the depot, the depot museum.
The depot, yeah, the depot, yeah.
What's your wife's name?
Kathleen,
Kathleen.
yeah.
And your former wife's name?
Eileen
Eileen. Her last name was?
Quartaroli,
Quartaroli. She was from Niles also.
yeah.
And Kathleen is, where's she from?
She was from here in Irvington.
From Irvington?
Yeah. her last
Was she
name-
born and raised in Irvington?
She was born in Niles at the maternity home and raised in Irvington.
What was her last name?
Chrisman.
So your present wife now, you were going to say?
Okay.
Sorry.
My sister Eva, my youngest sister, they were in the same class in Washington High School. We graduated in '58. And my sister Eva fixed me with a blind date with her in January of in January of '58. She was in school. She asked, okay, when I came home on leave, you know, we went out for New Year's, and then when I got out of service, she was married already, you know. So, and I was real shy. I didn't, you know, say much. You know. My wife Kathy now is my sister Eva's daughter, godmother. See, so whenever my sister had functions, I used to see her.
Oh, yeah.
You know. So then, after I got divorced, I was single for 5 years, and then her and I got together and got married, going on 28 years now.
Oh, wow. Wow. Great, great. Okay. Well, thank you very much for your time.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm off, huh?